We can all agree that Genshin Impact's extremely large character roster and also ever-growing character roster, as well as the 6 elements and all their elemental reactions, are a massive reason as to why the game is super fun and intricate to play around with. But we can all also agree that a lot of characters from older patches, specifically before Inazuma, which is 2.0, have been forgotten, underdeveloped, unevolved, and are just plain boring, bad, or just unusable sometimes. So in this video, I want to take a moment out of your day to talk about a concept that I've had in my mind for Genshin Impact to adopt for quite a while now. And this concept is adding a second burst to characters, or creating characters with the idea that they are going to have a second burst, that they have a second burst, the concept of having 2 choosable elemental bursts. Before you enter any combat sequence, you have to choose which ones you want to do from the talent menu, and you go into that fight having those equipped essentially. Pretty straightforward system on paper, but obviously there's going to be a lot of intricacies that need to be worked out. But as a concept, I really am passionate about this idea. And to show you just how passionate about it, I have thought of 3 characters and their elemental bursts out of the 5 baseline 5-star characters. I have an elemental burst concept for both Diluc, Jean, and Keqing. And in this video, I want to share those concepts with you. So let's start with the hot-headed KFC manager Diluc, right? For those who don't know, this is what Diluc's elemental burst looks like. This is what it is. This is the gameplay footage of him. But this can be very complicated. You know, you don't get a visual aspect of it. You don't get an aerial view of his elemental burst. So we're going to use our trusty program Paint to illustrate exactly what Diluc's burst does. The red dot here obviously symbolizing Diluc. And so let's just illustrate this very complex. So pay attention. This is actually really complex and can get a bit confusing. So pay attention. Wow, complex. This is what Diluc's burst essentially does right now. It shoots in a rectangle in front of him. And whilst that is fine and dandy to have as an elemental burst, it can be quite bad when comboed with a few of the systems in Genshin Impact, like the auto-targeting, making it go the wrong direction. But let's redesign this slightly. Let's try to remake this. How can we make something different, something unique, something fun, and just completely different from a rectangle? Well, conceptually, a circle. My burst idea for Diluc is essentially a circle. Have him plunge his sword into the ground and an eruption of fire happens around him. Quite a simple concept, but can change it fundamentally how he works and the scaling. As we know right now, Diluc's first elemental burst is predominantly used for AoE situations. You can use it for single target, but you predominantly use it to just hit a bunch of healy churls off a map, or into the ocean, or just in general just hit them with a fire phoenix. But I think for a single target option, a little bit of a fiery eruption around the character in a little bit of a circle formation can be quite fun and interesting and different, and plays on the fact that he's a very angry kind of guy.
Perhaps the knight's true calling is to be slime exterminators. Who knows? Domestic pest control may turn out to be a more valuable use of your resources.
Now, as for the logistics, that's not my job. I'm here, I'm a concept guy. I'm a concept kind of man. I'm shooting ideas. So the logistics, Mihoyo, that's on you. But conceptually, this will be $35,000. Moving on to Keqing. Keqing is actually one that I think is a really cool concept. Now, we all know what Keqing's burst does. It's a massive amount of slashes in a circular area around her. It's nothing too out of the ordinary. You know, just one of these, just outlines an area, does a bunch of hits around it, and then one massive slash at the end. Quite simple, quite straightforward. Now, my second burst for Keqing can be considered quite cliche, if you will. She does use a katana or a sword in a sense. And with that, it's very simple. Very simple, very straightforward. Let me illustrate it for you guys right now. Wow. What does this mean? Essentially, the samurai slash. The samurai hilt sheathing slash maneuver that we see in all samurai animes, samurai movies, samurai fantasy fiction, anything like that. That classic moment where the character does a lightning fast dash through the enemy. The Zenitsu. This thing right here. This clip of Zenitsu. Let's get that but as Kaching's second burst. Let's do that. That is my idea. It's pretty straightforward. It just does a bunch of damage, really. There's no logistics to do it. Just give it like a 1000% damage bonus or whatever, scaling. I don't fucking know. Just do that. Just get Zenitsu. Get this guy right here, Zenitsu. Get him, Kaching. Him and Kaching, same person, really, relatives. And last but not least, Jean. Now this one, we're not really changing the shape. We're not doing no shape changing like we have with the other two characters where we're transforming rectangles into circles and circles into lines. We're not doing any of that with Jean. What we are doing with Jean is changing the fundamentals of how her burst works. As we all know right now, her burst is she just puts down a circle that deals damage and heals periodically. It just does a bunch of stuff, but nothing exceptionally well. It just does everything. And that's fine and dandy. It's a circle. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But we can elevate her slight. As we all also know, there's a lot of anime characters that have the
sucking
effect. And when we look at all the anime characters, a large percentage of them have some sort of sucking effect. And so my proposal per se for Jean is to have a sucking effect to her elemental burst. Change it from a heal, make her a bit more of a support character and have it just be a bigger circle. Now this sounds very like, did you even try to make a burst? You might be thinking, this is so dumb, like this is so simple, did you even try? I did, and this is good. Turn her from a healer into a pure damage support character, vacuum, some sort of sucking effect. We want Jean to suck all the healing shells. We need this kind of mentality. Very simple, very straightforward, but it works. The concept of adding a second burst to a character serves no purpose other than creating replayability for old characters. If you look at the numbers, older 5-star characters just aren't being played unless you like the character for their aesthetic. Nobody plays Diluc anymore for the numbers. Nobody plays Kaching for the numbers. People are playing Jean just for the healing part though, but you can elevate that by adding a support aspect. And characters like Chi-Chi and Mona, I didn't really look at them because they are just slightly more difficult because they're slightly more intricate in terms of just being a bit more supporty healery. But the same concept applies of play to the character's strengths, see what kind of theme they're going for, and design ultimates in line with that. And just to spitball a few extra ones verbally because they're slightly harder to illustrate, Hu Tiao, who can gather enemies with her ghost and then deal ticking fire damage inside the ghost's belly. You have something like Zhongli where you can change his burst from a massive meatball that petrifies enemy into a bunch of spikes that come out of the ground and do a unique effect called Impale, which maybe debuffs the enemies. Adding a second burst can add to a character's story as well as massively increase their gameplay variety. It can expand the story by something like Kazuha, where his second burst he can read some poetry that buffs the enemies, or he can sing a song, or anything like that to do with his whole tranquility style. And it can also expand the gameplay in some characters having multi-uses. You can have main DPSs have supporting ultimates as well, so you have different playstyles. Now I definitely do understand that there is a counter argument saying that each character should feel a specific role. And my counter argument to that is, miHoYo doesn't label their characters. miHoYo doesn't give a character a single label. They let the players label the character. And a great example of this is the Raiden Shogun. When the Raiden Shogun was released and announced even, people didn't know what she was doing because miHoYo never specified. People assumed that she was a main DPS because she is this tyrannical, godlike character, but she ends up being one of the best supports in the game. And due to the fact miHoYo not ever labeling their character specifically, why don't they just make a lot of the characters just multi-task characters? Make Xiao a support with his elemental burst in some way. Make Yelan a main DPS with some of her bursts. Make any of the characters multi-aspect, multi-playstyle, because why not? It's not going to harm your game, you don't have a leaderboard. It would add a lot more workload to the team, obviously recreating characters from the ground up, but in my honest opinion, some of the patches do have so little content that you might as well just do some other stuff because people have nothing else to do. But this video was purely theoretical and kind of spitballing ideas in a YouTube video. I've had this concept of giving characters multiple bursts to expand their gameplay in my head for a while, and if you've jumped into the streams whenever I'm playing Genshin Impact, you've probably heard me talk about it many, many times. And I just wanted to put my thoughts and concepts into a video for it to be out there. So if you did enjoy, hit the like button and also consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 1k subs. And also put down some ideas in the comments of bursts that you would like to see in Genshin Impact, be it new character bursts or even second bursts for certain characters. I'd love to see what you guys have as ideas. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Perhaps the knight's true calling is to be slime exterminators. Who knows? Domestic pest control may turn out to be a more valuable use of your resources.